Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Kramer. Our guest today is Julie B. Let's get into talking about business, our very, very favorite subject. Welcome to the show, Julie.
Thank you, Alicia, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So you got a lot of stuff going on,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of going to throw this right at you, and you get to decide how you want to tell our listeners about all the things that you've got going on. Can you start by telling us a little bit about your business?
Yeah, so my business is as a speaker, author, and strategic advisor to business owners and their teams. And I basically, through speaking and writing, I help a lot of business owners. And then on the strategic advisory side, I bring my CPA background and my 15 years of digital marketing background to the table to serve almost like a fractional CFO or CMO, or sometimes both, to help business owners move their business forward. And, I help them with all kinds of things from finances to marketing to leadership to culture to burnout. Those are just some of the big topics that I tend to help them with. So, in a nutshell, that is what I do today.
Well, you mentioned to me that you just feel a calling to help business owners, and you're doing that in a lot of different ways. I really want to jump right into the good stuff here because you've got a really big goal, a really big mission.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be a beautiful place for us to start. I have a feeling it is going to open up a lot of insight for our listeners today. So, can you talk a little bit about your mission, about what your big goal is?
Absolutely. So the big goal, the vision, is to help 1 million business owners by 2032. So in a little less than a decade now, to help that many business owners. And we're defining it by downloads on the podcast, email subscribers, people who attend my speaking engagements, those types of numbers, social followers, clients, obviously. And, we are very excited about working towards that goal. We're seeing about a 30% growth each month. So my hope is we, blow through it. When I first said it, I thought that's a pretty audacious goal, and it still is. But I just have that gut sense that we are going to hit it and probably move beyond it. And I'm just really excited about it. I have been an entrepreneur since I was 15. I started a tutoring business in high school and continued that into college. And then I worked in corporate America, but I still had a few things going on here and there on the side. And then I started working for small business owners. So I've been I have this interesting perspective where I've been a key employee to a small business owner, and now as a business owner myself, I have key employees. So that that dynamic, I think, is really crucial to business success in general. But I love working with business owners and their teams to help them, achieve their goals.
One of the things that excited me about sharing your big goal
Mhm.
is, we've got all of these small to medium sized business owners listening to this podcast.
Mhm.
Incredible people, full of potential, full of goals.
Mhm.
And it is so incredibly common for people to set such low goals for
Mhm.
themselves.
Mhm.
And then when you are talking to somebody who's achieving big goals, you'll almost always hear them say their biggest regret was not setting big goals sooner.
Mhm.
When you got to that place within yourself where you were like, okay, this is what we're going to do, it may seem like a little bit of a stretch, but
Mhm.
I believe in myself enough
Mhm.
to go for it.
Yeah.
What was going on within you?
Well, I can tell you exactly when that happened, and it took about 14 years in business to get there. So, um, last year I wrote my manuscript for my upcoming book, and I was getting very frustrated with the self-publishing process. I had always thought I was going to self-publish my first book, and writing a book is a pretty big goal in itself. And I was really frustrated, so I submitted the book to the publishers of Traction. Just self-submitted it, no literary agent, nothing. And 1 month to the day after I submitted that book to BenBella Books, they had signed me for a contract for publishing my book. And if you've written a book, or if you're thinking about writing a book as a business, most of the time it's self-publishing. So getting a publishing deal my first time in is it still blows my mind, to be perfectly honest. So at that point, I was really questioning myself, and I did that out of frustration. And when I got that deal, I thought, we're just going to swing for the fences this year. We're just going to go for it. And so I started doing things like submitting to be on Brene Brown's podcast, and just like big things that prior to that moment I thought were kind of just way out of my scope at that point. And the reality is, the worst that's going to happen is somebody's going to say no, and you just kind of keep moving. So that was the moment where I think I got confidence in myself and this new business that I'm running, my personal brand, and with these goals that I have. So that's when it happened. And we have just been kind of swinging. I mean, swing for the fences is like our theme now here. And we just keep doing it over and over again. And, sometimes we strike out and sometimes we hit home runs, but what I always tell my team is, we're going for better, not perfect. Like that's the mindset. The focus is just better, not perfect. How can we do one thing better today than we did it yesterday? How can we improve one thing that we did last month to this month? And it's never going to be perfect, because perfectionism is the killer of progress, I think. And that's one thing that has taken me a really long time to learn as a business owner, because I used to just plan and plan and plan and plan, and I wanted the plan to be perfect. And then by the time I launched the plan, I was, behind the curve. So for those business owners out there that are, thinking about it or setting these huge goals and aren't sure if they can meet it, I mean, my advice to them would be just start. Just even if you don't hit that goal the first year, my take on it is, there are no unrealistic goals. There's just unrealistic timelines. So just go for it, because otherwise you're going to be in the same place as you were, last month or last year, if you don't just get started.
I love it. So you mentioned your book and you've mentioned your podcast. Mm-hmm. I definitely want to talk a little bit about those two passion projects. Mm-hmm. Why don't we start by talking a little bit about your book?
Yeah. So the book is The Business Owner's Guide to Burnout. And the story of why I picked that book, why that title came to me, was I had a really intense burnout in the summer of 2021. And I've had 2 or 3 as a business owner where I have had some medical things happen. And when I got on the other side of that, emergency time, basically with that burnout, I started looking for resources for business owners in burnout. And what I found was there wasn't a guide for business owners. And if there was anything out there, it was usually like, take a vacation and set boundaries, which are great. That's great advice, but that's not going to fix a burnout problem for a business owner. So I documented a system of how to kind of work through burnout in a step-by-step fashion, put a process around it, and wrote a book. And that's basically what my book's going to be on. And I think it's going to help a lot of people, because what I found is, with burnout, business owners are hesitant to admit they're burned out, because there's a vulnerability aspect there that I think is hard for some people to get over. So I'm hoping people can read the book and read it in the privacy of their own office and their own home, and get some really good advice, and actually have a system to help them through burnout.
I definitely see the value in providing people with resources that sort of fit within their comfort zone. I've been working with business owners on mindset related challenges for over a decade. And what I've seen over and over and over and over again is it's not even just super, super successful, well-known business owners. It's even the small to medium-sized business owner who feels so guarded. It's not safe to let people know that they don't always have it all together. And a lot of people are not getting the help that they need because of that. And those confidential resources, and that's why I design my business the way that I do. There's confidentiality built into it, unless a client says, yeah, absolutely include my name on that endorsement or that testimonial. Even in my membership program, I do that. There's ways for people to get all of the support that they need with complete anonymity. So I love that you brought that up, because it gives people permission to say, I don't have to put it all out there for the world to see in order to start taking some steps to improve this situation.
Yeah, and it's interesting. One reason I think business owner burnout is different than other types of burnout is there was this thought that, well, you chose this path, so it's yours to deal with. And it's your own fault for getting yourself into this scenario. And that's kind of, some business owners think that. And that's also, I think a society, that's kind of what non-business owners think about business owners, and part of it is true. Yeah, we did choose this path. And it doesn't mean that when we're burned out, we deserve to be burned out. It means that, understanding why you got there and how to get out of it is important, and it's different, I think, for business owners than other professionals.
Let's shift gears just a little bit, because now I want to talk about your podcast. So can you give us a little bit more about the subject of your podcast, who you're talking to, what you're talking about, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, so the podcast is They Don't Teach This in Business School, and it is a mix of really short, like 5 minutes or less podcasts that are solo episodes with me, and then interviews with other business owners. And those interviews we don't really talk about how to do marketing, how to, do taxes. We don't get into the how-tos of business. We get into the things they don't teach in business school, which are things like leadership and culture and burnout and, defining success in an intrinsic way and not so much external ways, and failure, and, the lessons that you learn along the way as business owners that, they're not in textbooks, and they're lessons that, quite frankly, you have to learn through experience. So that's the gist of the podcast, and it's an award-winning podcast, and I am an award-winning host and really proud of that. So yeah, I mean, that's what we talk about on They Don't Teach This in Business School.
Awesome. Well, we had to give that a little plug, because we've got a whole audience that is probably your ideal listener demographic. So now they can go find your podcast and check that out.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so now let's shift gears again, because you've already talked a little bit about some of your own mindset stuff. But one of the things that I love to get into with my guests, especially individuals like yourself, you've been in business for a while now. There is a little bit of a difference between coming in as a brand new business owner. You're going through some different types of lessons, right? And when you're a more established business owner, you're still going through lessons. It's just that they've kind of taken on a slightly different dynamic. And so I'd love to find out from you if there is a specific mindset challenge that you've personally had to overcome in order to get to where you are today.
I think, we talked a little bit about the perfectionism of things. I had to really accept the better not perfect, the wabi-sabi. The wabi-sabi is just finding beauty in the imperfect, and really kind of applying that to business, because as a creative person and also an analytical person, you can imagine sometimes my brain is at war with each other. So, the creative just goes off and does all of these things that we want to do. And then the analytical is like, let's get it perfect before we launch it. So that's an interesting dynamic that I have kind of going on in my own brain a lot of the time. So yeah, just getting through that perfectionism part and understanding the value in progress over perfection. That has been a major mindset shift for me. And I was probably in business for 10 years before I was able to have that mindset shift. It took me about 10 years to get that. And I had heard it, and you hear all these things. I mean, that's not new to most people, but it takes a while for some things to sink in for you. So, before that, I didn't have a lot of help. I was doing a lot of things on my own, and it just wasn't working. And I needed to bring in, fresh perspectives. And I took some risks in hiring, and they luckily most of them have panned out and have been really good additions to the team. But I think that that progress over perfection thing is really important, because you get into analysis paralysis if you're trying to be perfect all the time.
It's so common. It's almost cliche,
Mhm.
and there probably are a lot of people listening who can really relate to that.
Mhm.
There's some people are coming from the perspective of, it's almost more of a defense mechanism,
Mhm.
right? I'm protecting myself from
Mhm.
criticism. I'm protecting myself from failure. And so let's just keep putting it off until it's as good as it can possibly be, so it wows everybody and there's
Mhm.
no chance for criticism and there's no chance for failure. And there really isn't anything that is perfect in that respect.
Mhm.
So when someone is bumping up against that as their challenge, what guidance would you give them now that you're on the other side of it?
Put the problem down for, I would say put whatever it is you're thinking about down for a little bit, because I think when we're in that mode, you when you're trying to figure out something to be, to make it perfect, you're always thinking about it, you're always working on it. And I think one of the best things we can do is take a break from those things, because that break is where you're going to get some clarity and you're going to get some awareness, and other things will come to you. If I'm a big believer in kind of asking the universe for things. I've had that experience over and over and over again, where I ask the universe for things and it just shows up, often not in the way that I thought it would, but it does show up. And, sometimes I'll just I'll ask a question out loud and then let it sit. And I know for some that probably is a harder thing to do, but put it aside for a little bit and then come back to it, because I think that break is what most people need to have a breakthrough. That is a big part of what I tell people to do. And then when we come back to it, there's always a fresh perspective on it. A lot of the times when people hire me, they're hiring me to bring a fresh perspective to a problem or to an opportunity that they want to explore, and they just want somebody to review it with a different set of eyes. But sometimes, even in those cases, I ask the business owner to like set it aside for a week or two, so that, because they have convinced themselves of certain things, and they just need to take a step back from it and get some perspective. So I think that's really important to do when you're kind of in that mindset.
That's awesome guidance. I love that. It's so simple and yet so powerful.
Mhm.
I also love the point that you just made, which I think is often overlooked,
Mhm.
which is when you are so obsessive over something,
Mhm.
you are usually basically regurgitating the same thoughts over and over and over and over. It's like using the analogy of getting your car stuck in the mud or in the snow. Like, you can put your foot on the accelerator all you want, friend, but those wheels are not going to take you anywhere new. You're literally just stuck. And so taking that step back slows down the crazy mind
Mhm.
stuff and really does allow us to be more open.
Mhm.
Because you could give somebody the best advice ever, but if they're stuck in the wrong mindset, they're not going to be receptive to it.
Mhm.
And like what you said also about just putting out that intention into the universe for clarity, for answers, for
Mhm.
guidance, for support.
Mhm.
You don't have to be a deeply spiritual person even to experience that phenomenon. When you surrender, all of a sudden fresh new perspective comes in. So awesome tip
Yeah.
there. Hopefully some people will put it into practice.
Uh, If I can add one more thing to that, I would say, even myself, there are problems and opportunities in business that do require quite a bit of thinking time by the leader, the business owner, the strategist, the visionary. But I know the way that I know for myself if I'm getting into analysis paralysis is when I'm putting more options on the table. If I am thinking about an initiative and I am eliminating options, taking things, stripping it down more, then I know I'm still I'm still in that place of I still need to think about this a little bit more. But if I'm adding more options to the idea, that's when I'm probably procrastinating a little bit because of fear and imposter syndrome, because I wanted to be perfect. And that's just a little tip that I have learned about myself over the past couple of years, that that's when I know I need to just move forward, because if I'm adding to it, then I probably am just procrastinating. But if I'm taking things off the table with a certain initiative, then I know that I probably need a little bit more thinking time.
Awesome. Love that.
Yeah.
All right, Julie, how can our listeners connect with you?
Yeah, so the easiest way is to go to my website. It is thejulieb.com. My last name is Bee, like a bumblebee. So just so you can spell that. And then I would say I every week I send out an email that's called the Be Awesome Brief. It's a big idea and an easy action to help you elevate your business. And I would sign up for that. And you can do that on my website as well.
Cool. I want to thank you so much for being with us today. I encourage everybody to make sure they head over to your website, follow you, check out your podcast, the new book when it comes out. Is it out yet? Not
No,
yet, right?
it'll be out next year. It'll be
Next year.
available for pre-sale later this year.
Got it. Okay. So got to keep an eye out for that.
Mhm.
And thank you so much for bringing your energy and all of your insights. It's been a fantastic conversation.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you to all of our listeners. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.